Hey everyone, thank you so much for joining us for another edition of Your Money, where we are talking about how to earn money, how to save money, and how to protect your money. We have been so fortunate to have some wonderful CPAs come and join us and offer advice on your personal finance. And lately we've been talking about how you can start your own business without any issues down the road. So how to build the basement, if you will, the foundation, and then go from there. And as you know, we are heading into a new year, so we want to try a new subject, talk about you and how you head into the new year with some good financial resolutions. So kind of like going to the gym for your wallet, if you will. And joining us once again is Dave Young, a local CPA. Dave, thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
Wonderful being here.
All right, wonderful. So first, before we get into the PowerPoints, which you have become famous for, any thoughts, just general kind of financial thoughts as we get into January 1st and hit a new year where we hit a new tax season, everything like that, just kind of an overarching message for folks?
I think the overall message is really get yourself organized. Take some time and get yourself organized and get a good system. And we're going to talk about that today in depth, but overall message would be take the time you have and get yourself organized, get things together. If you don't do it now, when? And it's one of those things that you should do it. Once you get in the habit of getting yourself organized and focused, and you can start monitoring it. So my message is get organized.
I love it. And no one is more organized than Dave Young. Check out this beautiful PowerPoint once again. So I just wanted to illustrate the opening page as it's awesome. And then, so we're going to talk about topics here. So, as you can prepare for what you're going to hear over the next half hour. We're going to do tax planning, individual tax planning, and then New Year's. Why don't you go over the topics for us here, and then we'll get into each one in a bit.
All right. So we're going to talk about something that's probably will be a lifesaver. It's just a vital record keeper. We'll talk about that. Some financial housekeeping, just some very basic stuff, some smart financial moves, and of course, we'll end with cybersecurity basics because you're going to be compiling a lot of information. There's a lot of bad guys out there that want your information. We'll talk about how to keep that safe.
Beautiful. By the way, see what I did with that giant arrow here? Pretty cool. All right, so here we go. Tax planning for individuals. Why don't we, new OBB.
One big, beautiful bill. So here's what I want to bring up here.
All right.
Is if you're a person who's going to be getting tips, you want to make sure you have a record of those tips. So when you get your taxes done this year, it'll be organized. So there's some phase outs, and I have them listed on the PowerPoint. It's a pretty big deduction, up to $25,000. So you want to make sure, hey, if you were a tipped person, that you have an idea of what your tips are. So when you get your taxes done, you'll have them at hand. So before the end of the year, get that organized. Go back and pull some of those records together. And the same thing is true for overtime. So if you're getting overtime, it's not going to be on your W-2 this year. So your next year, yes. So when you get your 2026 W-2, it'll be there. But in January of 26, you'll be getting your 25 W-2. And guess what? Your overtime will not be on there. So I would go back to your employer and say, hey, can you compute out what my overtime pay is? It's only the overtime component. So, make sure it's calculated correctly.
Right.
So when you do get your income taxes done, you have it there. And for our seniors 65 and above, you're going to get another $6,000 deduction. So that could mean maybe it'll push you where it's not taxable. So maybe before the end of the year, take out a little extra money because you have a little extra $6,000 you're not going to pay taxes on. Or just keep that in mind when you're doing your tax planning.
Let me ask you this. When it comes to overtime, when it comes to tips, is that something that the employer should be keeping track of?
Yes, the employer should keep track, but depending on what kind of business you're in, it could, vary. But generally speaking, both the tips and the overtime component should be tracked by the employer, and it should be something your employer should be able to get for you.
All right, sounds good. So New Year's resolutions here. Let me hit up the box here. New Year's resolutions. Oh, I went too far. There we go.
Yeah, so here's what we're talking about. I really encourage everybody to build a vital record keeper. Go back one slide before that.
I'm so sorry.
one slide before that.
There
There
we
you
go.
go.
You're
And
right.
and
You're
then
right.
the concept. Here's what all it really is. It's nothing too fancy, guys. We're just getting everything into one spot. Like one, it could be digital, it could be physical, it could be both. But you're going to start off with all your personal family information. Just, run a scenario through. God forbid something happened to you, or if you're a married couple, happened to the both of you. Where could all that information could be found? Or if sometimes, in couples, one couple might be handling everything financial, and something happened to that person where the other person would know where everything is. So it's basic stuff. You start off with your full name, dates of birth, marriage records, and military service, if applicable. Military service will be your DD Form 214. If you are in the military, you'll know what that is. And you want to list out all your bank accounts. It's more important to know like what bank and what financial institution these things are at, and whether or not you have life insurance. You may have gotten a life insurance policy 20 years ago and forgot about it.
Yeah.
You want to have it all kind of in this binder. And make sure you check your beneficiary designations, both on your 401k or 403b at work, your IRAs, your Roths, or all of your different investment accounts. You want to make sure you do have a beneficiary designation and it's the right person. So it's a two-step process. And, you want to make sure you have all your account numbers, that they're correct, and the names of the institution. So it's one of those things where it's a very basic start off. Get that basic information. You can put in a 3-ring binder. It could be however you want to do it. There's no wrong way to do it. Is conceptually just get it all organized.
So let me ask you this, Dave. Can you do that in your will, or does it have to be done in a will, let's say, and then also in these various areas that you can put a designation?
That is a great question. So this actually supersedes the will. So in other words, the beneficiary designation on your 401k or IRA will say, hey, this is going to this person. The will is a lot of things that you might see that aren't going to have a beneficiary, like maybe what happens to your car, your house, your personal effects.
Yeah.
So you want to make sure this is correct. You don't want to necessarily count on the will. You want to make sure that at the financial institutional level, wherever your money is,
Okay.
so at the bank accounts, the financial accounts, your brokerage accounts, that you do have a beneficiary listed there.
No, very, very good point, because I think some people think, oh, I put it in my will, and that's good to go. All right, let's take a look at slide number 2 here for New Year's resolutions.
Yes.
Build your vital.
Yes, you're still building this. So here's what you're going to
keeper,
find.
yeah.
You want to make sure, hey, do I have what we mentioned earlier, do I have life insurance? But maybe you find it's not enough, or maybe it's too much. You should start adjusting. The same thing with your health insurance is a big topic. Make sure you have your health insurance, making sure if you have children, they're going to turn 26 later in 2026. You want to make sure, hey, give those kids a heads up. You need to find your insurance,
right?
Or do you have in disability? So if you have a disability policy, great, but organize it so people know where it is, and it goes for all your your auto and homeowners, all of it. Just make sure that it's the appropriate amount of insurance, and you review it. In long-term care, if applicable, it's very good to have if you can have it, and of course it'll impact your income tax return, because New York will give you a credit if you have long-term care insurance, generally speaking. And it's helpful to list out who your CPA is, who your attorney is, who your financial advisor is. Have their business card in there, or maybe a phone number, an email, a contact information, because generally speaking, those 3 individuals will have a pretty good insight into what's going on in your life. And it would be useful for your spouse or your children, whomever you're leaving these assets to. And while we're talking with the attorney, make sure you had just mentioned, Adam, having a will. That's a must. A trust could be.
And by the way,
different.
And by the way, when we talk about wills, I think it's an important point, and one that I've been taught over the last couple of years is wills are not just when you're grandparents.
Right.
It's for any time, right? I mean,
Exactly.
how young should you be? How old should you be when you start thinking about getting a will?
Well, I think anytime you have any assets you want to pass on to someone specifically, but just imagine you're a young married couple, and you have a child now. So who's going to, God forbid something happened to you both at the same time, who's going to take care of your child?
Right.
Who's going to be the guardian? And then typically there'd be a trust set up, and who's going to manage that trust for that child until they hit the age of majority. So there's a lot of things to consider. So
Right.
the answer is most everybody should have a will.
Yeah.
Most everybody should have a will. Really, you'd really have a good estate plan. You need to get with a lawyer, not using these, canned products that you might hear on the radio or on the internet. This is something important. You want to have an attorney review your documents and do an estate plan and make sure you have a good qualified attorney that does just that work. And attorneys come in different flavors and do a lot of different work. You want the attorney that does this type of work.
Okay. Very good.
And one of the things is right there is a power of attorney. What if you get sick or you're disabled, you're in the hospital, who can take care of your affairs while you're recovering? And there we go. Like a living will is if you're sick and you can't respond, you're going to have a healthcare proxy. And what do you want? Do you want to be on life support? Do you want to have, what's your wishes if things are dire, in your dire situation? It'll make it easier for your family. And sadly, we should talk about your final wishes and, have that sort of in writing or at least discussed. So not a great fun topic to talk about, but
Hey.
it's something that we should be aware of. I mean, you should not ignore it. It'll make it better for whoever's left behind. And some folks have prepaid arrangements. Some folks make it clear whatever they want. Then you can, whoever's surviving
Right.
can honor those wishes. But it has to be somewhat known, right? I know it's not a fun topic, but it's something that you really should probably put in writing and discuss. And once you have this document, you might want to let someone know where it is. It's
Right.
not only good to organize it, but then, if it's going to go to your adult child, hey, it's here in the file cabinet, it's here, wherever you're keeping it.
Yeah. And look, this is one of the final gifts that you're going to give them, not just what you pass down, but also the lack of a headache should something
Correct.
happen to you. This is a time for them to grieve. The last thing they want to have to worry about are final wishes and where the money is for that.
Exactly.
Well, I've seen it. We have all seen it. And sure, it's not great to talk about it, but it's also even worse for it to happen when it does. So, by the way, I just want to take 2 steps back. What is a trust for people? I mean, we always toss out that word like, oh, a trust. What does that actually mean?
So that's you see a trust happen in a lot of different situations. So a common trust could be for perhaps there's a minor child, and you don't want the child getting all this money. Maybe there's going to be assets that would fund the trust. If you passed away, and
Right.
normally it would be a trust that comes into play after you pass away, and then you'd have maybe that money get doled out over time, or else, if you could have a situation where maybe you have a child that's, whomever you're leaving the money to, you want it to be in such a way it's coming out, and you have a trustee that kind of follows the rules of the trust.
Right.
So a trust is a way where essentially the money's getting doled out in a way that you would want it to be doled out, even you're not here, you've passed on. So
Yeah.
and there's other types of trusts too that they can get very involved. So if you're having assets pass on and you want to have a little bit more nuanced control over that, you would definitely want to speak with an attorney, because the attorney is the one that will draft the trust documents. And trust can be used for multiple things. There's all kinds of different types of trusts out there, and there's trusts that people will use for different types of situations: minor children, disabled people. There's Medicaid trust. There's many types of trusts, but it's suffice to know that if you have children, you're passing assets on that they haven't reached the age of majority. You'd likely want to have a trust in place where those assets would go, where someone would follow the trust document, so that money might be doled out over the child's lifetime, or maybe while they're well into their adulthood, where they don't get all the money until they've gotten certain milestones, age 25, 35, or whatever you want, whatever. And in the meanwhile, they can get monies for education or vehicle, whatever they need. So it's something that when you start meeting with your attorney, you want to bring that up to the attorney while the attorney's preparing your estate plan, which would include your will, your power of attorney. That's something that the attorney would discuss with you.
And when we talk about a healthcare proxy, does it have to be a relative? Can it be a friend?
It can be a friend.
That, I mean, and also that can create difficult conversations
Yes,
too.
yeah.
But how important to have it, and obviously let that person know.
Exactly what you would want. Do you want to go on a ventilator? Do you want to
Yeah.
be on life support? Do you want, what are the things you want and don't want?
Right.
Or else that you'll leave the person with the decision to make, and then they're always going to second to guess themselves.
Right. Of course. Yeah. No. Absolutely. All right. Let's mosey on down the road here. Make sure I didn't miss a.
So this is, setting up a budget and a cash flow. I think, I know a budget is not an exciting topic, but we're ending a year. We're in a digital society. Presumably, a lot of the information you can easily, review last year's spending
Mm-hmm.
and use that to create a budget. Now, I'm not saying it has to be, you live right by it, but it is useful to have a budget. It's like I'm saying, you're not going to focus on perfection, just the process of having a budget. Hey,
Yeah.
this is the money coming in, this is the money going out, this is what's happening with my money, so it can be best utilized. When
Right.
you have a budget, then you're going to have an idea, hey, maybe there's a hole in my budget. If you have streaming services that you're not using, oftentimes empty nesters, their kids may have had a bunch of streaming
Yeah.
services that you're not using anymore, or
Yeah.
apps that you're paying for, things that auto renew.
And what type of? I apologize if I missed it because I had to deal with a toggling issue there. What are there apps or within Word? I know there's kind of like budgeting software. Anything that you recommend?
I've seen there's all kinds of apps out there that I think will do it. I've seen people just use an Excel spreadsheet.
Mhm.
It depends on what you want to do. There are apps out there. The concern I would have was, and then some of those apps, then someone else is looking at your data.
There you go. That's my big concern.
Right.
Yep.
So if it's free, that means your data is possibly being
That's the
mined.
revenue.
Right. That's their revenue.
Right.
For me personally, an Excel spreadsheet,
Yeah.
that's, to me, it's pretty simple to use. It's right there. You're the only one seeing that data.
Yep.
And it forces you to, however often, once a week, once a month, to, have a cup of coffee and spend a Saturday morning before you start your weekend
Yeah.
updating your spreadsheet. So
Right.
for me personally, it's a spreadsheet.
Okay. I love it.
And what I also would recommend is just having an emergency fund, just to check, make sure you have it, check the box. Hey,
Yeah.
and people ask, how much, Dave? I say 3 to 6 months. So if your family budget is, 10 grand a month, then you want to have, 60, between 30 and 60 grand set aside. Whatever your these are monthly expenses
Right.
that's set aside. Someplace, when I say safe, I don't mean under your mattress. I mean like in a checking account
There you
or a
go.
savings account,
But
something that's liquid,
I was
not
about to say,
not
that's the word.
exposed to the stock market. I know you're not going to get great interest rate, but where you can easily access that money. We're in a society today that you don't know what's happening. Like you want to have a few months worth of savings in cash where you easily accessible.
So-
And then
yeah.
if you have a budget, you'll have a pretty good idea about, okay, hey, how much is exactly 3 to 6 months worth of my expenses, because you have a budget to look at it.
Yeah. Now, what if you? I know it's not the same, but if, let's say, you just can't save that kind of money, is a HELOC something that would be
Right, that's a great idea. So it's time to get to HELOC is when you don't need the HELOC. So if you
That's so true, because it takes a little while
take
for
some
it to
time
kick
to get
in.
it right, take some time
exactly.
to get it through. So while you're I guess you can say your back's up against the wall, while you have the time to do it, get it now. The HELOCs are typically, they'll charge it for the privilege of having it, but
Mhm.
it doesn't mean you're borrowing the money. It just means you have the ability to borrow the
Exactly.
money if need be. So
Yeah.
if all of a sudden your furnace goes and you need to dip into some money, you'll have your HELOC in place.
There you go. Very good. So the other ones you said, so I think we kind of hit that now. So that's pretty good. Let me go here. We dip down here. All right.
All right.
Ooh.
This is some more fun stuff here.
All
So
right.
here we're talking about, hey, oftentimes you'll see folks, the employer will match, but
Mhm.
that's like kind of like a really big return on your money. So if you're putting in 3% of your wage, your employer will also do the same thing. But oftentimes people they put 0 in, so the employer puts 0 in. So think about make sure you maximize the employer match at a minimum.
Yeah. Free
And-
money.
And right, and if you've done
Yeah.
the budget like we just talked about, maybe you'll find, hey, I can increase my contributions.
Right.
You can, put in quite a bit of money into your 401ks, and 403b. So if possible, increase the amount of money you put into your retirement, because hey, your future self will thank your present self for that. That money is going to grow tax free, and it'll be there for you when you need it.
Yep.
And if you have a child in college, or not even college, child who's a little kid who's planning on going to school, you can consider funding a 529 plan.
Yep.
So New York State will give you a nice tax deduction. So if the max deduction is about $10K for a married couple, so if you put in $10,000, you'll save some New York State tax, and then your child or grandchild or whomever will have some money set aside for college.
And I think we were talking about it too, Dave, that the Trump account, if they want to put $1,000 in, take it. But as it's written right now, I think you and a couple other CPAs were saying 529. Generally, everyone's kind of has their own thing, but generally probably a better bet.
Yes, probably a better bet, a little bit more organized. I have the Trump accounts on my slide there, and there's a form you fill out, of course, with the IRS. And they'll have the Trump accounts essentially set up by mid-2026. You'll file a form. But for now, I would use the 529 plan. For your funding your loved one's school.
Yeah.
And then think about, while you're got all the paperwork out, and we're putting we're making these smart financial moves, we're organizing our information. Well, take the time and look at where your assets are. So in this case, let's say your 401k or whatever, and just review your asset allocation. Do you need to rebalance it? Because obviously some things have grown, maybe things didn't grow. You might have set your asset allocation just where how much money's in equities or bonds or fixed income. Or just maybe re-look at it. Sit down. You may have not addressed it for a while, and you're putting money into your 401k or 403b, and those initial contributions or those contributions are going someplace, but you might have set that paperwork up years ago when you started your employer, but your situation may have changed.
Yeah.
So you want to make sure your assets, wherever they are they still meeting your current goals and your risk tolerance, right? We talk about the red zone. And, that's when your red zone is like a football analogy. You're Josh Allen, you're on the 20-yard line. You're going to go into the end zone here. So think about it. If you're getting ready for retirement, you're getting close. You want to make sure your goals, your investments are matching your goals and your risk tolerance. You want to just make sure you've thoroughly gone through that. Right. And one thing to keep in mind too, since we're talking about financial moves, is just check your credit reports. There's 3 credit bureaus out there. You can check them regularly.
Yeah.
You don't all, maybe stagger them. Each one typically gives you a free one, so stagger them. And maybe a credit freeze if you don't need credit. I mean, we're in a world where a lot of people's data is in the wind. A lot of your personal identifiable information is already out there on the dark web somewhere. So you want to make sure you're checking your credit. You maybe freeze your credit if you don't really need it, and consider getting an IRS identity PIN. So that means that someone can't file a tax return if they know your social security number and date of birth.
Yeah.
And my last thing is there's these Trump accounts. There's some, kids, a person less than 18, they're allowing $5,000 contributions, and newborns get $1,000 right from the Treasury to fund the accounts. Yep. And there's a form, I put it right up there, of 4547. Essentially, you can file it with your 25 return. You can mail it in. I wouldn't recommend mailing it in. So you're e-filing it. Or you can wait till mid-2026, and they'll have, you can submit them through trumpaccounts.gov.
Okay.
So those are something to consider. They're brand new sort of Trump accounts. They're going to be administered essentially by the government, I believe. Yeah. So that's how it's going to be set up.
All right, very good. All right, let me move. I lost my place
one
here.
One more. There you go. One more.
There you go.
There you go. Perfect. So here's what I want to close with.
Okay.
I want to make sure once you've got all this data, and whatever you're doing, pay attention to cyber security. And make sure you do have strong passwords, and you're not using the same passwords for all your accounts. And I know that's hard. So there's password managers out there that you can use to help make this process a little bit easier for you. And you want to make sure you're not, you're also using a what's called 2FA, which is two-factor authentication, which means you have you put the username in, your password in, it'll send you like a push to your phone or whatever you're using, your device. And when I say app-based, sometimes they'll send you a text message,
Right.
Which is called SMS, like a text message, or an app. There's many authentication apps, and the apps are built a little bit more secure because these bad guys are so advanced they can intercept your text messages.
Wow. That is spooky.
It is spooky. And then you want to make sure wherever this information is should automatically lock, like your phone should automatically lock, your computer.
Right.
Use encryption. So your laptop or whatever you're using, your laptop or desktop, however, has encryption. It's all standard software. So the software, the operating systems already come with encryption. Turn it on. That means if you lost your laptop, unless they have the encryption key, they can't get in there. And make sure, of course, you have all your antivirus and anti-malware on there. And then, make sure whomever is your trusted person, if it's a child or your spouse, they know how to get into your stuff. So we got to trust somebody.
Yeah.
Again, go back to when we first talked about is something happens, you've got to have, someone's going to have a plan to get into your phone or your computer or
right.
however you want to do that. That's up to you.
Yeah.
So you want to protect it. And I would say also, once you get all this stuff in, and that's the hard part, and I realize it is difficult and it'll take a little bit of inertia.
Mm-hmm.
Don't set it and forget it, but set it and then monitor it. So whatever that monitoring for you is, if it's once a month, once a quarter, semi-annually, but get in the habit of, once you have everything in place, is just to make sure you keep it updated, and then it's a lot easier along the way. It's a pretty easy it's a pretty easy process once it's monitored. I know it's a big push to get all of this done, and I realize it's a lot of work, but it's going to benefit your future self and benefit your loved ones. So it's something that's very important.
So my anecdotal experience will push me to emphasize all of this is wonderful information, but really the designation of various accounts that you might have, like a 401k that Dave was talking about, make sure that it's designated, and then the will. I had a relative whose parents passed away, and one of them did not update their will in time, and it's been a nightmare. It's been a nightmare ever since. So that's the last thing you want to leave behind along with your legacy.
Exactly. And make sure you work with a lawyer. These are all legal things, not CPA things, but a lawyer will know what to do.
There it is.
And the lawyer, the lawyers they're going to be a specialist in this little area, right? Or this big area, but it's very much worth paying a lawyer to make sure all of this is done correctly.
Yep.
And it's done by a lawyer, a professional, and then it's organized and it meets all your needs. And again, a will change, right? Because as your life situation, as you go through life, the situation you have as a young married couple might be different. If you're now 30 or 40 years down now, you have adult children and grandchildren, and you know these are things that just because you have a will, doesn't mean it should be looked at and updated regularly.
That's a great point.
All of these things involve you having financial professionals. And that's when you want to put in your vital record keeper, who your CPA is, who your financial advisor is, who your lawyer is, and get it organized.
Very good. By the way, this is the information if you want to reach out to Dave or the association that he's part of. Wonderful partnership so far with us, and I can't thank them and you, Dave, enough for coming in and helping folks get off to a great start in the new year.
All right. Well, have a good year, everyone, and you got your homework now. You got your resolution.
There you
Make
go.
it stick.
There you go. Dave Young, we can't thank him enough for all of the wonderful information, whether it's your personal finance or your business. And we can't thank you enough for coming and spending a little time with us as you learn to earn money, save money, and protect your money. Take care, everyone.
Get the Rochester First streaming app today for everything you love from News 8 On Demand, plus exclusive shows you won't see anywhere else. Search ROC and download for free on Roku, Amazon Fire, and Apple TV.